Oh man, shout out to Go Hub. How you doing? She never had humanity. Malignant narcissists only mirror and mimic those emotions. Exactly. What's going on, Lily? She's just a horrible person. Sorry, I feel sorry for Erica and the babies. Me too. Candace is horrible. Young 2.0 said, I think May or June of 2024 was the last Turning Point USA event Candy went to. See? And he was shot on September 10th to 25. It was well over a year and some months. She knows she wasn't there. She wasn't supporting him. And yet she obsessively kept up with where they were going and how they scheduled these events. You can't make this stuff up. What's going on? Brian Miguel, how you doing, honey? And shout out to all my mods up in here. I appreciate that. Francisca is going to be a mod. Once I'm done with this live, I'm definitely going to point you a mod in here. So we're going to have a couple more mods coming up in here. I appreciate all of you guys for the support. Candace is using Charlie for views. She is. Candace, when you're going from 500,000-600,000 views talking about Andrew Weinstein, 700,000 maybe, to now 2-3 million views a day talking about Charlie Kirk, of course you're going to keep doing what you think is working. And then when you run out of lies and run out of conspiracy theories, or when you realize, you know what, Lady Luck Club kept trying to tell me that people are trolling me with my tip line. when you finally realize that, you realize you won't have any more content on it. Then you're going to have to talk about something else, girl. Ugh, Candace, you heifer. All right. Yeah, thank y'all so much for tuning in. We're finally at it. We're here. The Candace Owens video. Oh, God, her show. This is what she did on Friday, I believe. What's today? Sunday? Yeah, I think she did this on Friday, right? She had nothing really like, I told she rambled. I was told she rambled a whole lot. Did she do something yesterday? Oh, Jesus Christ. So this is the one she did Thursday. Because today's Sunday. Yeah, I think this is the one she did on Thursday. Or something to that extent. She talked about passes and handlers and all this other stuff. Oh, child. Candace, you Jesus. Okay.
All right, you guys. So, happy Thursday.
Oh, hold on. Let me expand this back up. So we're gonna do who Charlie, the one where she talked about the Charlie Kirk. What did he discover near the end? Because she rambled on this one as well. So, all right, let's get to it.
Hey, now somebody sent me this throwback clip from Charlie and I back when I had a show on PragerU. We were discussing the kind of allies that you need when bullets are flying at you. Take a listen.
When you're in a foxhole, you want someone who is not going to tell you that there's no bullets being fired. You want just to say where the bullets are coming from.
Right. Yeah. That's right? Exactly right. Yeah.
You don't want someone in the foxhole with you being like, well, want to get a hot dog, right, like maybe a burger, a smoothie. You want to say, no. There's a machine gun nest over there. There's mortar shells coming from there. Right. Here's what we're going to do.
Here's a plan of action to get out of this.
Exactly. Right. And that's the type of friend that you want. And you definitely don't want one that's going to run for the hills behind you.
Yeah.
And
We've had those. Yes. We definitely know who our allies are. I am resisting making a comment about Mikey McCoy. Ladies and gentlemen, we are.
Why you keep picking on that boy? It's just, you're bullying this kid. When you weren't there to show us all how you would have reacted in that event. You weren't, Candace. You can continue to let your guilty conscience speak for you because you know you had no contact with this man for a year leading up to his death. You weren't close to him. You can't even prove it with text. And yet you continue to bully Mikey McCoy. God has a way of getting your attention. You keep messing with this kid. And sometimes God is not going to always come back making you reap what you've sown. Someone else close to you that you love might have to reap it because of what you sown. You need to stop.
Are definitively in the foxhole right now. And we are learning who Charlie Kirk's real allies are and who his real allies were. So welcome back to Candace.
Oh, good Lord.
That's what I want to know. I just want to know who were his actual friends and his allies, because somehow
you weren't.
Too many of them are trying to criminalize asking any questions. Don't just ask questions. Just accept the Fed slop. It seems a little bit ridiculous. We should start, by the way, with Frank Turek. Frank Turek, as a reminder, he is the pastor friend who was next to Charlie, actually, when he was a...
Yeah, y'all see she recycling these conspiracies. I was like, Candace, let me help you out. No one ever said not to ask questions. They said if you're going to make accusations, provide evidence. You know, that word you still can't define. I understand you struggle with that concept, but you need evidence. Otherwise, leave it at your opinion, because then you've learned nothing from the Macron lawsuit either.
Fascinated. You remember he was wearing the white hat. He ducks down. He is one of the people that helped to get Charlie to the vehicle. He was at the hospital. Well, I just learned that Frank Turek was reacting to me. He went on CBN News recently, and here is what he had to say.
I have not followed Candace Owens closely. I know she was a good friend of Charlie years ago. In fact, when I first met Charlie, I said, tell me a little bit about your ministry, like your what you do, and who have you mentored? He mentioned Candace Owens, and Charlie would never speak ill of anybody privately unless he spoke to that person first and tried to correct them. So Charlie never said anything bad about Candace or anything. But I just find this idea that she's making all these suggestions without evidence very painful for people. It's okay to suggest, well, maybe this, maybe that, but as soon as you start launching accusations, TPUSA betrayed, betrayed Charlie. I had a dream that Charlie told me this. That's not evidence. I mean, maybe she's right. It could be. Anything's possible, but not everything has evidence behind them. And what people don't seem to understand, and this is why I had my friend Detective J. Warner Wallace on my podcast 2 weeks after Charlie's martyrdom. People don't understand how prosecution works, how murder cases work. The prosecution rarely tells you anything they have, much less everything they have.
Okay, so a couple of things I want to say here. First and foremost, I am loving this repeat talking point of people who claim that they didn't watch all the episodes, they don't have time to watch the episodes, they don't have time to go through the facts, and yet all of them, for some reason, know that I said that I had a dream that Charlie was betrayed, right? That's how you know that you are in the midst of a propaganda spell, that they have been delivered talking points. I mean, it's such a minute point in all of the evidence that I presented. I have done second-by-second timelines. I have done minute-by-minute timelines. I have presented...
No, you haven't. You tried to sit here and talk about Egyptian planes, and you thought that UTC stood for Utah time. You can't make this up. How do you put together a timeline, Candace, when you think that UTC, leading up to the day you were corrected about that, stood for Utah time and not coordinated universal time? Do you understand how skewed your timeline would have been if you're basing it off of Utah time? This is so unbelievable. She thought UTC stood for Utah time. So when you talk about a timeline, Candace, I can't take that crap seriously, because you had no idea what UTC stood for. That would have thrown off your entire timeline, because timeline includes the word time. This is so ridiculous. Candace, just to help you out, I've defined the word evidence for you. Evidence is a noun. As a noun, is the available body of facts or information indicating whether a belief or proposition is true or valid. As a verb, be evidenced. Be or show evidence of. Candace, what evidence did you show at all that will serve as a body of facts or information as to whether whatever your belief is true or valid? Just like when you said you have 2 degrees, where's the evidence on that? We'll wait. We'll wait, girl.
Webs of people and their connections. I have presented a list of how many times we were lied to by Turning Point USA. They don't know any of that. What they know is that on one episode, Candace said that she had a dream, right? Valley Stuckey just did this 2-shooter video. I was like, I don't have these dreams. The idea here is this must just all be crazy rantings. Every day, Candace is up on this show like Miss Cleo from the 90s and just like predicting what she thinks happened. It's such a ridiculous way to try to deal.
First of all, if you are a Christian, you should find, something disturbing in someone saying that they had a vision of someone who's deceased, when the Bible is specific on that. Being referred to as an unfamiliar spirit is a form of witchcraft. Why would you say that? It makes no sense. And yet, here's the logic that you lack. How do you have anyone visit you and say, avenge me in my murder? And then they don't tell you who did it. They leave it to you to try to figure it out. That makes no sense. You know, I'd be very irritated. Somebody visiting me in my vision, and they're saying I need to avenge them. And then they just kind of leave it at that. They get murdered, and then they don't tell me who the murderer is. What? Let's solve all of that right now and make this real quick. Let's take care of this real quick. You know, you fly out, doctor, get a little blood, take care of this real quick. Yeah, why didn't you just say that to whatever spirit you thought you were speaking to in that vision? You know, let's just take care of this real quick. Who's the murderer? Make that make sense. There's no logic to that. You're going to say everything but who the murderer is? Get out of here. Charlie knew she was not an investigator or a reporter or a journalist or nothing. So he would have told her.
Legitimatize the research that we have done. Now, I don't know how you're able to comment if you have not watched what I said, but we're only interested in getting the truth.
Comment,
so here's
girl.
What I did. I personally invited Frank Turek onto the show because we legitimately want answers. Now, to his second point that he is making there, where he is trying to now say, this is not how court cases work. We're not looking to have a conversation with the prosecution, okay? We've already decided that this entire...
Perhaps you should, girl, because that's where the fate of Tyler Robinson is going to be decided in the court of law. We all know you have no respect for the rule of law. You don't mind committing cyber crimes all over the place and doxing people, you know, because you don't think any of that will catch up to you. Oh, it will. But we all know that. But maybe you should. You know, Erica Kirk has had a conversation with the investigators. And she was his wife. And so she feels confident in it. And she wants cameras in the courtroom. Then we don't expect Candace to be watching because she doesn't trust the feds. So we don't expect her to be watching any part of any hearing that's being televised in that courtroom. Right, Candace? You will not be watching it because you don't trust the feds, correct?
Investigation feels like a bad Fed operation. We are looking for answers from his friends. Like you guys can just serve public interest here. Okay, we should not pretend.
No, our public interest means nothing in the court of law. There's a difference. Who cares? You know, facts, finding a fact, evidence, and law doesn't care about your feelings. It's irrelevant. What can you prove beyond a reasonable doubt? That's what we want, Candace. That's what the people want. They want the bad guy off the street. And if you're saying that you know for a fact that Tyler Robinson didn't do it, maybe he was a part of it, but he didn't pull the trigger, why won't you say who did? So we can get the bad guy off the street, girl. This heifer right here. You can't
somehow the case would be put at risk if Mikey McCoy shared his call logs. How's that going to impact the case? How is that? If you answered...
That's evidence that's for the case, girl. No, you don't need to do anything. You know what? Okay.
Questions about why Charlie wanted to put together the Doge committee. How would that impact the case? We actually don't really care about the case because we're not feeling like Tyler Robinson actually alone. He's a lone shooter. But we deeply care about whether or not and why his friends seem to have been...
Well, she said it all right there, y'all. She doesn't care about the case. She doesn't care about any of that. She doesn't understand how evidence works. She doesn't know how investigations work. She doesn't care about any of those things. This is why we have laws, Candace, because you're not privy to that evidence that is a part of a federal investigation. So no, you don't get that. Just like the autopsy report. You're posting up medical information without consent. And yet you think that you're privy to call logs? No, ma'am. I thought you were an investigator. Why don't you find a way to get it yourself? Good luck to that. You can't make this up.
We should not pretend like somehow the case would be put at risk if Mikey McCoy shared his call logs. How's that going to impact the case?
We should not pretend that. Do I need to Google this? Is Candace she's an airhead. Candace, you can just look up how federal investigations are conducted. Do you not understand? Is it evidence that's boggling her mind? It's just serious. You can't, man, look at his face. You can't make this up. This is a joke to her. This is like a game.
That if you answered questions about why Charlie wanted to put together the Doge committee, how would that impact the case? We actually don't really care about the case because we're not feeling like Tyler Robinson acted alone and he's a lone shooter. But we deeply care about whether or not and why his friends seem to have been lying to the public. Like we have found these lies. You can't undo that, and you guys refusing to respond to that. We care about whether or not his friends betrayed him. Okay, so dreams can give you some sort of intuition, and I certainly think that mine gave me a lot of intuition. But now we have the facts to back that up. At least the claim that they're betraying him now, right, by not answering very simple questions and by lying to the public. So I would very much invite Frank Turek onto the show. I don't think we've ever covered Frank Turek. He hasn't really come up in this investigation. He hasn't been.
You have to prove that they're lying. You know, once again, burden is another concept you don't get. That is your burden to prove that they're lying. You're just saying they're lying. That is an accusation. You're saying they're doing something you can't prove they're doing. This girl needs a whole vocabulary lesson.
Caught in any lies, certainly. So I don't know why he would have an issue with coming onto the show to explain how prosecutions work, and I can explain how friendships work. We knew, the public, we all knew who Charlie Kirk was as a human being, okay? Charlie Kirk has been assassinated. And what we are doing now is we are rejecting this idea that everyone who hit the stage at his memorial event can somehow now just be grandfathered into this organization, grandfathered into our acceptance. These individuals should no longer be questioned. They are friends of Charlie Kirk. That's emotional manipulation. They say they loved Charlie, and so we should just trust the science and ignore the many lies that they have told us. What exactly is TPUSA faith? Who is Rob McCoy? Why is it that these Calvary chapels have a long history of weird abuse and trafficking scandals that seemingly get swept under the rug, right? Why is Rob McCoy adjacent to some of these scandals? I'm going to give you just one, I think, big example here. Okay, this is a true story. I hope I'm saying his last name right. Thomas Kimono was a man who was factually put away into prison for abuse, molesting, lewd conduct toward young girls by pretending. How he did this was he pretended that his cat was lost. Okay, I'm going to read you an email that I received from one of his victims who is now an adult, but she was just an eight-year-old child back in 1995. Here's what it reads in part. Okay, I was 8 years old, living in Dana Point, California, when Thomas approached my.
How do we know that this is from this young lady? How do we know that? How do we know that doesn't say from Candace Tips to Candace Tips? Because, you know, Candace forged and faked text messages because she doesn't understand how date and timestamps work either. So how do we not know if this came from Candace Tips email to Candace Tips, CC Candace Tips? Why would someone send an email to where it's tips@CandaceOwens.com, more tips at CandaceOwens.com? How do we know this came from someone on the outside? Candace, you're bad at this, girl. You're bad at this. Let me help y'all out with this. Right quick, Candace, pay attention. Federal law on why evidence is not released to the public. Federal laws restrict the release of evidence to the public to protect sensitive information, privacy, and the integrity of the legal process. Here are some key reasons why evidence may not be released. Confidentiality. Evidence is often sealed to maintain the confidentiality of the investigation and the identities of witnesses and jurors. See, Candace doesn't care about any investigations because she doesn't even care about people being doxxed. There's a thing called a jury pool selection, to which that grand jury, let's say it's an FBI investigation and they need to get an indictment. They get a grand jury, a federal grand jury, to indict someone. They look at the evidence in order to make the decision on whether someone should be indicted. So let's bring this down to state level. In order to have the evidence preserved, you have to have a jury, especially when you're talking about the fate of someone getting the death penalty in a criminal matter. The jury has to be kept confidential. They have to feel safe and protected from the public, especially from a high-profile case like this. They're going to have to review that evidence. They're going to have to review the witness list because testimony of Candace Owens is evidence as well. So if you're going to have witnesses from the prosecution and or defense coming in to give testimony is evidence that has to be preserved. So part of your evidence would be the witnesses that are going to come in to testify. Candace, do you not understand how this works? How much more dumb is she going to show us that she is? This is what I mean by she doesn't look this stuff up, and she doesn't know how court works. Part of the evidence, Candace, is the witness list. These people don't deserve to be doxxed by you. And when they come in to testify, they are giving evidence to the court through their testimony. That's how the exhibits are introduced into the case, through testimony. So no, you are not entitled to get evidence related to this investigation, because part of that could include people's names and information, email addresses, phone numbers, addresses, other sensitive data. You're not privy to it, Candace Owens. Candace Amber Owens Farmer is not privy to any evidence related to this investigation. You are not, girl. And you're trying to put people's lives in danger with this nonsense because you're sending your dumbass cult followers after people to harass them online and to dox them. Am I making sense? So far, we've only gotten past confidentiality. Does this make sense to everyone else? So that we all can understand why Candace Amber Owens Farmer is not entitled to evidence related to an open investigation. Because she doesn't know how any of this stuff works at all. Candace, you're an idiot. I'm helping you out, girl. Because I know you're bad at this. And if you don't like the name calling, let me tell y'all something. I have to repent every night before I go to bed. This stuff sometimes gets me a little irritated because I'm concerned about people's privacy and protection. Our journalism should not put people's lives in danger. It should never do that. No one should have to worry about being doxxed or harassed or bullied or anything in the name of journalism. It is very dangerous. And Candace already said she does not care. We know that, Candace, you heifer. We know that. But you got way too many other people that do. Protection of privacy. Candace, here it is. The release of sensitive information can compromise the privacy of individuals involved in the investigation or trial. Do you not understand that defense and prosecution will both have witnesses? And those witnesses are real people. And they deserve to have their information kept private. You asking for a call log. You know what that reveals, Candace Owens? Phone numbers, names, information related to accounts. You don't deserve that info. You're not an investigator. You're not privy to it. If you understood what was in a call log, you wouldn't ask for it. No one cares about your skewed definition and concept of friendship either, because you weren't a good friend to Charlie Kirk and you know it. But you want somebody's call log that you're not privy to, that's connected to personal identifiable information, which is private information, that has phone numbers on it, conversations with other people. No, you're not getting it, girl. You can't make this up. Integrity of the legal process. Something she doesn't respect or understand. Sealing evidence can help ensure the integrity of the legal proceedings by preventing the introduction of biased information. Bias, Candace, another word you can't define. See, when you're sitting here saying, oh, well, everyone at Turning Point is lying, it's biased. It's nothing that the actual jurors need to hear. They don't need to hear that. They don't need to see your videos of you just calling everyone a liar and questioning people's friendships. No one cares about your friendship theory. People care about the evidence. If you think you know who the shooter is, why won't you tell us who the shooter is? So we can get that bag off the street, because there's a protection order protecting Erica Kirk and her 2 children. What if the bad guy's still out there and then they're trying to finish off the job? And here you are saying Tyler Robinson is not the shooter, but I don't know who is. Well, shut the hell up. You have no evidence to provide that is of use to anyone. You haven't provided any to begin with. Let's be clear on this. Candace Owens has not provided any evidence or information that is of value to this investigation to anyone at all. And I would like to think, Candace, if you did, Erica Kirk would have given you a shout out. She doesn't even acknowledge your existence on Earth, girl. Erica Kirk does not even acknowledge the existence of Candace Owens. She's never even said your name. Let that simmer and burn for a minute. Just like your yeast infections, Karen. Those recurrent yeast infections are burning down here. Yeah, let that simmer and burn for a second. Erica Kirk does not even acknowledge the existence of Candace Owens. And I only hope that if she does it with a lawsuit. You disseminated her husband's medical information that was sent to you illegally without her consent. No one owes you anything, Candace. And the candy asses think I'm scared of her. When she does nothing but violate laws. No one needs your biased information interjected into this case. Something you don't care about by your own admission, Candace. So if you don't care about the case, then why talk about it? You see how you're being hypocritical and contradictory? If Candace Owens does not care, why speak on it? Talk about something else. Why don't you talk about the Epstein files? Then last point here, public interest. In some cases, the public interest may outweigh the need for confidentiality, but this is a rare exception because it is. What Candace Owens is about to mention is something that could be that rare exception, like where you have someone out here doing something to, people where they haven't caught the person. And out here, essaying little girls and stuff like that. That is of the public interest. Because people need to know how to protect their little girls. But when you have someone like Tyler Robinson who's already confessed, just because you don't believe it, it's irrelevant. The public interest now is whether or not they're going to be able to prove that he actually shot and killed Charlie Kirk with the intent to do so. He already admitted he did it. If you have evidence to prove the contrary, Candace, why not give that to the investigators? Why not give that to the prosecution? It will get the bad guy off the street. But since you have nothing to offer and no one owes you anything in return, then we're all going to keep living. Courts have the discretion to unseal evidence under specific circumstances, such as when the public interest is high and the legal standards for disclosures have been met. There are standards, there are requirements that you have to meet in order for certain evidence to be released to the public. It still will not involve an invasion of privacy either for the witnesses or for the evidence itself. A call log has nothing but confidential information on it. Information you're not privy to. Phone numbers, names. Who knows what else is connected to these call logs? You're not privy to that, Candace. So this is why I keep saying she doesn't get anything. She's not privy to this stuff. And since because she doesn't care about the case, nor does she understand how court works or how investigations work, Frank Turek did not lie when he said that. I just proved how she doesn't understand how it works. Yeah, well, I'm sure Candace and the candy asses won't read it either because they've already proven they don't do that.